Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning in. My intention for you today is that by the end of this video, you will have everything that you need to be able to start and launch your podcast in whatever field you want to be speaking about. And if you stick around to the end of this video, I'm going to put in a little bonus section to show you exactly how you could use a podcast to, if you've got a service-based business, to get more clients, and if you're in a job and if you're looking to progress, I'm going to show you how you could use your podcast to create more opportunities for promotions and pay rises in your industry. So let's get into it. Today, this is exactly what we're going to be covering. We're going to start by getting you to understand how to choose your podcast topic. Then we're going to cover how to get guests lined up for your podcast. Point 3, we're going to be talking about monetization for your podcast. 4, we're going to actually then talk about what equipment to use to get yourself started. After that, we're going to talk to you a little bit about what to do when it comes to recording, editing, and then publishing. I can't wait to share with you how easy it is for you to get started. I'm then going to talk to you about podcast artwork and branding and how you can get amazing high quality artwork for your podcast put out there. I'm also going to talk to you about how to promote your podcast. And then finally, like I mentioned, a little bit of bonus content. I'm going to show you how to use the podcast to generate more clients or more opportunities for promotions and pay rises. By the way, my name's Dipesh. I'm the host of the Mindful Creator podcast. If you're new to this channel, welcome. And if you're returning to this channel, hello again. I just want to take a moment to say thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you do find any value in this video or something that's really helped you, please do like, comment, share the channel, share the video, comment with questions, comment with takeaways. It really helps me improve the reach of the video and really helps me grow the channel as well. And obviously, as I'm sure you've been asked with every YouTube video that you've watched, please do subscribe. Okay, phase 1. This is all about how to choose your podcast topic. This part should actually be probably the most fun thing for you to decide, because this is your podcast and this is your opportunity to choose any topic that interests you in some way, a topic that maybe you can't stop talking about, or maybe something that you want to learn about and you want to use your podcast as an opportunity to interview a bunch of experts in that field to give you more of an insider idea of that topic of learning that you want to follow through with. So the best way to start understanding what topics you might want to talk about in your podcast is to start writing down a list of everything that interests you. For example, if we look at my podcast, The Mindful Creator, I absolutely love talking to people about business. I love talking about finance and property investment and just understanding the world of money. But then I also really love the idea of spirituality and how that impacts every single one of our decisions. So what I've done in my podcast is combine all 3 of those loves into one thing, and I try and touch on all 3 of those subjects where possible with every single person that I speak to. And even as I'm saying this out loud to you, I've just realized that the things that I really love to talk about and have an interest in and want to learn more about is pretty much all the things that school doesn't really teach us about. So I'm almost using my guests as an opportunity to educate myself in a way that school never could. I also really love learning about people's journeys and what they've been through to get to a level of success that they've achieved, because I feel like everyone's stories are so unique, and there could be something that you hear in one of my guest stories that could be resonant to what you're going through in your life at any moment. And just by hearing how someone else has overcome some adversity or some difficulty in their life, that gives you the certainty, the confidence, or maybe just the feeling that you're not going through something alone. And that to me is something that's really important as well. So I also try and capture those elements into my podcast. I mean, there you have it. I've got so many different aspects of what I like to talk about and what I like to learn that I've just thrown into my podcast, and it forms all of it. It's not just one thing. I'm not just business focused. I'm not just inclined towards spirituality or consciousness. I like all those things, and I'm going to end up talking about all of them anyway. And that's hopefully giving you a better idea of how you could then start bringing in different aspects of your life that you're interested in into one podcast or one topic of conversation. So it'd be a really good idea for you to start making a note of all the things that really interest you, things that you maybe have a ton of questions about, but you don't know where to get the right answers from. The best thing you can do is interview people who've achieved the result and that have the answers through experience, because what you'll learn from them will probably far exceed something that you will maybe get from a Google search or books. I find that books and Google searches have so much information. I mean, just look behind me and you'll see how much I love books that have knowledge and wisdom around business and spirituality and all the topics that I just covered. But I find that when I'm talking to someone about that topic, they're just able to bring that knowledge and that wisdom into a more practical delivery, which helps me understand it that much more. So let's go with some examples here. You might have an incredible passion for dogs. And if that's the case, then you could absolutely start a podcast about dogs. You could start interviewing dog owners about the types of breeds that they have, why they choose those breeds. You could talk about nutrition. You could talk about training. You could talk about, the difficult times with dogs. What's the hardest thing about having a dog? What does life look like if someone loses a dog? These are all questions and things that people may want to know about if they're thinking about getting a pet, or they might already have one, but now they've got all these questions about things that are coming up that they've never even considered before. And your podcast might just be the thing that has the answer to all those questions. Now, another example could be that you really love talking about TV shows. Maybe you are someone who absolutely loves binge watching TV shows, or you've watched the same show a million times. Like, I've watched Friends. I don't even know how many times I've watched Friends. It's that many. But I also love Suits. Suits is probably, for me, one of the most amazing shows I've ever watched. And if I wanted to, I could start a podcast about Suits, so could you, or about Friends, or Grey's Anatomy, or any other TV show that you love. And what you'll notice is that you'll have the opportunity to connect with so many other enthusiasts about the show. You could then end up creating like this review style podcast for all new TV shows and end up comparing them to Suits and give them a rating. And who knows, you might be the next big Rotten Tomatoes or IMDb just because of the way that you review shows. Now let's go with one more example, and let's use more of a professional setting for this, and let's stick with the Suits theme. Let's just say that you are a lawyer and you're looking to grow your network, you're looking to gain more awareness around who you are, and you want more of a professional profile around the type of lawyer and the type of work you are. Then you could start interviewing a bunch of your colleagues just in your immediate vicinity to talk about past cases, why a verdict went a certain way, what could have been done differently. You literally have an endless possibility of ways to be able to speak to people in any given niche. You can talk about best practices, you can talk about ethics, but then you could take this so much broader as well. You could end up interviewing judges, as an example, to talk about what they've experienced from their personal and professional lives and how it's impacted their career, why they went for a judgeship, what they look for when a lawyer presents them with a case, and how they base their decisions. These are all amazing insights that people would, in that field, want to potentially listen to. So some really good questions that you can ask yourself to help flesh out the idea of what you might want to talk about are the following. So the first question that you can ask yourself is, who is my ideal listener? Like, who does that person look like? The second question is, what would your podcast educate your listener on? Essentially, what information are they going to get from listening to your episode? And then a third question, which is always a good one to ask, is why would someone listen to it? Is it because they've got tons of questions about this area of life or business or the topic that you've chosen? Is it because they're emotionally attached to it in some way? Is it because they're trying to progress themselves? Is it because they're trying to just learn more for uni or exams, or are they teachers and they want to bring a different element into their classroom? And then the last thing to ask yourself is, how does this podcast help? So hopefully I'm giving you an idea that literally the possibilities on what the topic of your podcast could be are endless. And instead of trying to do what most people do, which is say, niche yourself down, just remember, you are a niche in itself. Your different interests, everything that you're passionate about, everything that you have questions about, that's your niche. And Dan Coe has some amazing stuff about recognizing how you are your niche. But just remember, you don't have to go like super specific just on one thing. So if you do love dogs and you love law and you love suits, talk about all three things. Don't feel like you can only just talk about dogs and then never bring any other aspect of your life into your podcast, into your conversation. So part 2, how to get guests lined up for your podcast. Getting people to come onto your show, especially right at the beginning, can feel extremely daunting, especially when you're not quite sure how these episodes are going to go. You haven't done many and you're feeling a little bit nervous about having someone on your show to record an episode. But these tips will help you get into the right mindset to get yourself ready to invite hundreds of people onto your podcast and create an amazing consistency and flow of episodes to be released. So the first thing to remember is that asking people to join your show is almost like a sales job. But instead of asking for money, you're asking them to spend their time to come onto your show. And just like any other sales job, it is all a numbers game. So when you're looking at reaching out to people, don't just reach out to one or two. I want you to start thinking in tens and 20s and even hundreds of people that you are willing to reach out to get a few of those people to respond saying yes to come onto your show. Now, the other thing to say is expect people to say no. And it's okay, it's not personal. They could have a number of reasons why they're saying no to jumping on your podcast. They might be terrified of being interviewed. They might have a fear of being on camera. They might lack any confidence in being able to provide value, even though they probably have tons of value to give. Or they just might be so busy that they genuinely don't have the time to spend 45 minutes to an hour or sometimes 2 hours to join your podcast. That's okay. Every no gets you that much closer to a yes. So a great place to start is by asking your inner circle. So literally start by asking your friends, your family, your work colleagues, anyone that you know on a personal level that you could feel comfortable in inviting onto a episode to record something. And the reason why this is so important is because it will give you a little bit of confidence in yourself to then start asking more people. Because if you've got a couple of episodes recorded, you're going to have a little bit of momentum, and that momentum will give you that confidence to say, hey, by the way, Mr. X or Mrs. Y, I've got 4 episodes that I've recorded so far. I'd love for you to be episode number 5, and this is all the reasons why I'd love to have you on my show. Now, when I first started, I used someone that I knew. So I had a friend of a friend who joined me for my first ever episode, and I'm so glad that I did because I was petrified when I did my first podcast. So using someone that's in your inner circle can just make that process a little bit more fluid and comfortable and easy for you just to get started. So if you're going to start asking people you don't know to join, here's a couple of points that will help you get started. Obviously, social media is an excellent tool for this, but before I jump into the social media side, in-person networking events are an amazing place to meet like-minded people, because you can go on like meetup.com or Eventbrite here in the UK, and you could go and research literally every event that's happening in your city or cities nearby you, and choose the events that you would like to go to because they mean something to you. You feel compelled to go to them. You feel like you might get some value out of it, because if you're feeling that, you're going to meet other people there that will be feeling the same thing, and making that in-person connection and talking and building a real connection will allow you to then easily and effortlessly ask them if they'd be up for spending some time to record a podcast episode with you. And the beauty about this is the chances are, if they're in person at an event near where you are, that they will likely live close by, which means that you could even get them to come and record an episode in person. It's not essential because you can very easily record over Zoom, and I'll talk more about this a little bit later in the video. But having that close proximity to each other could make it that much easier for them to say yes to joining you on the show. Now, there's a billion different ways that you could get people to say yes to joining you on a show on social media. The thing that I see being done the worst way is what I experience a lot of myself. Not just asking to come on a podcast show or anything like that, but it's cold DMs. It's cold DMs for literally everything, whether it's, hey, I can do your social media videos for you, or hey, I've got a job opportunity for you, or hey, here's a way that you could trade Forex, etc., etc. Don't cold DM people, because people are so conditioned to receiving bullshit messages that the chances are yours will end up getting lost. Okay? So instead of just cold DMing people, start building a real relationship with the people that you'd love to have on your podcast. So think about the networking event for a second. How would that go? You wouldn't just walk into a networking event, see the first person that comes across your line of vision and say, hey, would you like to jump on my podcast? That person will probably run away thinking you've gone a little bit nuts. Instead, you'd start talking to them about where they came from, you'd start asking them why they're at the event, you'd ask them what kind of interests them, and then once you've built a relationship, you might go, hey, by the way, I have a podcast, if they haven't already asked, what do you do? And talk a little bit about it, and then see if they're interested in what your podcast is about, and then ask them, hey, would you be up for joining me on the show to talk about this? Use the same strategy, but on social media, because social media is about being social, not cold DMing. So start building a real relationship with people who you would love to have on the show. So for example, if I want to have person X on the show, I might go to person X profile. I'll start engaging with their posts, like genuine engagement, not just dropping a fire emoji in the comments or anything like that, but seeing their post and seeing what they're trying to convey as their message, and then actually responding in the comments publicly with my thoughts and opinions and any value that I might be able to add. And I'll do this for a good 5, 6, 7 days before I even think about DMing someone, because that's how long it takes for someone to maybe even start noticing you. Obviously, you can do this on every social media platform. You could do it on TikTok, you can do it on Instagram, you could do it on LinkedIn. So if you're more in the professional space, you might want to interview CFOs, CEOs, you might want to interview certain executives, depending on what your area of interest in your topic is. But LinkedIn is a great place to interview professionals. So you can use the exact same strategy in all those different social platforms. And if you can't, for whatever reason, get through to someone on DM, then you've always got the option to send an email. Again, just remembering that this is a numbers game. Just imagine that for every 10 messages that you send out or 10 emails that you send out, you might get 1 response. Worst case scenario. If that's the case and you know that you want to have 10 people on your podcast in the next 3 months, then make sure you're sending out at least 100 messages or emails to get those 10 people saying yes to being on your show. Some of you might not be extroverted, you might be quite introverted, and the idea of asking someone to do anything terrifies you. That's okay. I've been there, and I actually was extremely introverted. The best way to get over that feeling is to ask anyway and get your no's as quickly as possible. Because what you'll realize is once you get a no, you're still here. Life didn't really change. You're no worse off getting a no than you were before you asked. So you might as well ask again, because life doesn't change when you get a no. But if you keep asking, you will get a yes, and life will start changing as a result. Okay, so let's talk about a part of the video that I'm sure you're all interested in, which is monetization. How can you monetize your podcast to get it to pay you, whether it's something to supplement your income or something to replace your full-time income? Now, for the majority of you, and I know I had to go through this right at the beginning as well, when it comes to your podcast, just assume that for the first 50 to maybe 100 episodes, you're probably not going to get paid anything. It doesn't mean you can't get paid sooner, but the odds of it happening are not in your favor. When brands and businesses are looking to pay or invest in someone to get a return on their marketing spend, which is essentially why someone would pay for a sponsorship in a podcast, they're looking for someone who's got episodes under the belt, someone who's got momentum, and someone who's got an audience that would then capture the right people for their business. So if you're looking to monetize, the best thing that you can do is really ramp up momentum to get yourself up to a decent number of episodes, good average listeners and subscribers to your channel. When you do get to that level, here's 3 ways in which you can monetize. The first one is sponsorships. So you might align with brands that you've used or you've had a great experience with, that you end up creating a relationship with, who then choose to sponsor your podcast, to have their message shared in your YouTube video or your audio podcast, whether it's on Spotify or Apple, because they know that your listeners are likely to be great customers for them as well. For example, this podcast and my channel is sponsored by Simply Maldives. Simply Maldives is a luxury Maldives holiday agent, and myself and my wife used them last year to have an incredible belated honeymoon, essentially. And the experience that we had with them was the best holiday we've ever had in our lives. They took care of everything from helping us choose the resort to sorting out our seaplane transfers. And when we got to the island, we were literally treated like royalty. So as a result, we've created a great relationship together. And now anyone that chooses to get a no obligation quote through my channel, through Simply Maldives, is given incredible deals, great access to amazing discounts, and will essentially have the chance to have their dream holidays, if that is a dream holiday for you, in the Maldives, through Simply Maldives, and they will look after you exactly the same way they looked after us. By the way, if you are curious about how much a trip to the Maldives would cost for you, there's a link in the description below. Now, sponsorship deals like the one that I've managed to get so far typically work on a retainer basis and get reviewed every 3, 6, or 12 months, depending on the brand, depending on the company. And you are then in a position to negotiate on what it is you're getting based on the performance of essentially how your ad is working. So the other 2 ways of getting paid in your podcast are through brand deals or subscriptions. Brand deals work a little bit like sponsorships, but instead of a monthly retainer, you would get paid by a brand for a one-off post. And this doesn't just have to be a brand of what you might find on a high street. So I know that a lot of beauty influencers get paid to do one-off posts for using items within their beauty categories. I'm probably the worst person to be speaking about beauty, but I'm just trying to give you a rough example. Nail polish or lipstick or eyelashes or whatever. If there's a beauty influencer that really has an amazing following that would engage with those products, then a brand might turn around and say, hey, listen, we're going to pay you X amount for one video promoting this product. So that's typically how a brand deal might work, and it would be a little bit different to that sponsorship because it wouldn't be a monthly retainer. A subscription, on the other hand, would work, and there's a couple of guys that have done this brilliantly because they've got a podcast called Shits and Gigs, and their podcast is basically just for fun. And I feel like they do teach a little bit about like life and the conversations that guys have and how people are in relationships and stuff, but it is hilarious. And most of their content is for free. But on the back end, if you want access to exclusive content that isn't available anywhere else, you can then pay for their subscription version of their podcast, and you get access to exclusive content that is only for paid members. And that is another way to create monetization behind your podcast. But again, this would come much further down the line once you've got a bigger following, you've got a loyal following, and you're starting to see that your reach is really expanding. Now, I did say, assume that for the first 50 to 100 episodes, you're probably not going to get paid. I've had the same assumption, and I'm now on episode 47, I think, and I managed to get my sponsorship just a couple of months ago. I didn't expect it. I wasn't sitting here thinking, okay, by episode number 30, I have to go and make money from this thing. It literally came out organically from the fact that I invited the owner of the company to be on my podcast, and that's how we created an amazing relationship, and that's where the sponsorship grew from. So let's move on to the next phase. What equipment should you be using? The point of this video is to help you launch and create your podcast completely for free. So when it comes to equipment, you wouldn't be surprised to hear me say you don't need anything. If you've got a phone, if you've already got your laptop, you pretty much have everything you need to be able to launch your podcast. Even when I started my podcast, I had my laptop, I didn't have the best camera or anything. I literally hit record on Zoom, which is how I started recording my podcast. And it was the easier option for me because Zoom recorded the video and the audio all with a click of one button. And when I finished the recording and I hit finish on the call, that file automatically converted and I had my final product ready to go to be uploaded to every single platform. Now, if you do want to spend a small amount on any equipment, I'd probably say a microphone might be the best option, because when it comes to a camera, you might not have the best camera on your laptop, but if you've got a phone that is in any way like 2 or 3 years old, maybe even older, the camera on that is going to be pretty decent. So I don't think you need to go and buy a fancy, super expensive camera to get started. If you want something that picks up sound a little bit better, you've got a couple of options. When I bought a microphone, I think it was probably my 9th or 10th episode that I decided to buy a microphone. It was a wired microphone that I got on Amazon for less than 20 quid, I think it was. I'll link it in the description below for you. And it was amazing because it had, like a headphone, it had 2 microphones with 1 headphone jack that plugged into my phone. And that way, if I was sitting away from someone and someone was sitting across the table from me and I was interviewing them, my microphone picked up my voice, the microphone that they had picked up their voice, and it recorded it as if it was all going into one microphone, exactly like how this video is being done. So that was amazing. Since then, I have gone and purchased a slightly better microphone, obviously, as you can see, but I also have the DJI mic, which if you're looking for a microphone, I'll link all 3 below for you and you can choose. But please remember, you don't need them, because even the microphone on your phone will be able to pick up the audio, or on your laptop if you're recording on Zoom. Let's talk about recording, editing, and publishing. Now, the easiest way that you can record, edit, and publish any podcast is using the same software that I use, and I know that hundreds and thousands of other podcasters are using, which is Spotify for podcasters. Now, this used to be called Anchor in the App Store, but you can actually download Spotify for podcasters completely for free from the App Store, and it is incredible because literally from within the app, you can press record, start talking as if you're interviewing someone or doing a solo podcast directly within the app, and then edit it within the app as well, hit publish, and Spotify for podcasters will send that episode and push it to every major platform, including having it published on Spotify, obviously, and on Apple Podcasts. They have literally made it super easy for anyone to use, and you can even add like intro music or background music to your episode. You can upload your artwork to Spotify for Podcasters app, so then when you see it on Spotify or Apple, it literally shows up with your artwork already done. Like, you literally don't have to do anything else. All from the one app, it pushes everything, all the information, the data, and the images to every major platform. Now, when it comes to editing, one of the things I will say is don't over edit. One of the things that I used to do right at the beginning was try and edit out every or in my podcast. It used to take me hours. Literally, I would be sitting there trying to take out microseconds off the podcast and the episode because I thought it's not perfect. Don't try and over edit your content, because without, or rather with the additional ums and ahs, see, I'm leaving this in there, with the additional ums and ahs, it just feels more human. And if you're choosing to record videos as well, which you're going to then upload on YouTube or have Spotify play the video for you, CapCut is completely free to use. It has tons of features that you don't have to upgrade to Pro for, and it allows you to export in 4K. So literally everything you need is on your phone, first of all, and then you can download the desktop version of CapCut if you prefer editing on desktop on Mac or PC instead of on your phone. So if you download if you download Spotify for podcasters and load up a audio that you've already recorded maybe in your voice notes, or record directly into the app, get it edited a little bit if you need to, and hit publish, congratulations, you are now officially a host of a podcast. Okay, let's talk about artwork and branding. So for everyone here who's not a graphic designer, not a art school legend or a designer in any way or form, don't worry, I've got you because I am none of those. And the best friend that you can have when it comes to creating your artwork and your graphics is canva.com. Creating what you want in canva.com is so simple, it's so easy. You can literally create a free account with your Gmail or just register with any email address. You'll come up to the Canva home screen, and literally at the top, all you have to type in the search is podcast artwork. Hit enter and you will get thousands of free templates that have already got artwork, colors, design, elements, all of it in there. And you just go in and tweak the wording to whatever you've decided to call your podcast, and you can change the graphics and the images if you want to. And if you like what you see, you don't have to at all. And you, my friend, now have a graphic and some artwork done for your podcast. If you want to use some really high quality images but you don't have any of your own, you can also go into Canva's bank of images, which are completely royalty free to use. And they've got 4K images there, from mountain ranges to nature to waterfalls to, office spaces. It depends on what you're looking for, really. But as cliche as it sounds, the world is quite literally your oyster, because that oyster is in Canva. Finally, we are at the stage of promoting your podcast. Now that you've recorded your podcast or podcasts, depending on how many episodes you've done, the goal is to start promoting them, because a podcast platform like Spotify or Apple itself isn't really a search engine kind of geared to helping people find your content. So unless someone's actually looking for your exact podcast, the chance of them finding it is very low. This is where your ability to promote it comes in to get you more views, more listens, and more engagement overall. Now, the best way to promote your podcast is to shout about it from every single rooftop. And by rooftop, I mean social media platforms. So talk about it on Instagram, talk about it on TikTok, share it on LinkedIn. And this is where having a podcast guest can really help. So I'm all up for solo podcasts. I don't really have many solo videos of my own. Most of my videos are with a guest. This is actually the second video, other than my meditation, that I'm doing as a solo. And I am planning to do more of this, but I tend to just find it easier when I'm talking to someone, because then I don't have to worry about and think about what am I going to say, and is it going to be okay? Do I have to make any other edits, etc. So when you have a guest that you bring onto your podcast, what you can do when you're sharing snippets of it is invite your guest as like a collaborator on Instagram, which means that you're now leveraging their audience. You can tag them in posts that you do on LinkedIn or TikTok, and that allows them to kind of, first of all, be acknowledged because they were on your podcast. They absolutely should be acknowledged. And secondly, if you make the clips about them that are promoting your podcast, they're going to want to share it. So what I tend to do is I will make, depending on the podcast, between 4 and 10 clips from a podcast episode. And again, using the same software as I already told you about. I don't pay for CapCut. I use the free version. I haven't found a need to get the pro version. So I will create clips from the free version of CapCut and then download that to my phone and just upload it to Instagram and TikTok as Reels. And what I do is I specifically pick the parts of clips that I think really highlight my guest. I don't actually try and pick as many clips that are about me. I want it to be about my guest, because I want my guest to feel special about the fact that I'm really excited that they came on my podcast, and I want them to share it. So to get them to share it more openly, I make the clip about them. And if I'm in parts of the clip, then great, and I'll be in there. And if I'm not, that's okay, because I'm still sharing the clip. It's still got my name on it, and I'm getting that exposure thanks to my guest. So if you're thinking about just doing solo podcasts, again, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. You will definitely be able to promote it in the exact same way, but do consider leveraging guests every now and then, or getting as many guests as possible, because you will be able to then leverage their audiences. And by the way, you don't have to go and get guests with 50 or 100 or 200,000 followers. And be careful when you're going after some of these guests, because some of the guests that have, or some of the profiles that have hundreds of thousands of followers might not be genuine followers. You want people who have a genuine following. I've had guests that have had 100,000 plus followers, and I've had very little engagement on my clips that I've created. And I've had guests with less than 5,000 followers have triple or quadruple, sometimes 5 times the amount of engagement because their following was real. So I used to get bogged down by the numbers thinking, oh my God, I need to go and find guests who've got hundreds of thousands of followers. It's not true. Just find great people who have great stories that can make an impact. And here's a little trick to see if someone's following is kind of genuine or not really genuine. If someone's got 300,000 followers, but is getting maybe 5 to 10 comments per post, or even 50,000 followers and 3 to 5 comments per post, that is not a genuine following. A genuine following, you can see these accounts as clear as day. You could have an account with 10,000 followers and have 200 comments on a post, and that is a following that is loyal. So those are the types of accounts to look out for. And when you're doing your research on the types of guests you want to be with, make sure you add that little tick box and criteria into your search so that you know that you're inviting someone who's got genuine people watching them, wanting to learn from them, or listening to what they're talking about, because that's really going to help you leverage their audience as well. Okay, so that's everything, but I have one last section for you, which is that bonus section that I spoke about right at the beginning, which is how to leverage a podcast to help you get more clients if you've got a service-based business, or to help you get a promotion or a pay rise if you're in your career and you absolutely love your job, which is amazing, and you want to advance and progress in that field. So the first thing is your business. So if you've got a service-based business, I'll use a digital marketing agency as an example. Let's just say you've got a marketing agency, you want to get more clients that you want to run ads for or that you want to create content for. If that's the case, if those are the types of clients you want to get, instead of cold DMing people or cold emailing people, which, listen, again, don't get me wrong, it does work, but if that's not your area of expertise and you don't particularly like doing that, then you could create a podcast for the type of companies that you want to interview that would be your ideal client, and invite those people, particularly the decision makers. So if it's a bigger company, the CEO or the CMO. If it's a slightly smaller company, then just the director and the owner operator of that company. Invite them onto your podcast to get them to talk about their business, talk about what they're working towards, talk about their struggles, talk about essentially their story in their business. Because if they are willing to come and talk to you, you are now going to have an amazing relationship with that person. And every great business deal started with a great relationship. And this is your opportunity to create the relationship that you would like with your potential future clients. But it also gives you the opportunity to really assess and interview whether that client is someone you want to work with as well. So it kind of opens up that two-way communication and that two-way street where you get a vibe of how they are and what they would be like to work with, and vice versa. And this is, I can tell you now, this works because the clients that I've generated for myself, because I have a sales agency and I do marketing consulting, those clients have come as a result of my podcast. So if someone tells you that, that's not going to work, or, you have to do cold DMing and cold emailing and sales calls and all that stuff, not true. And I come from a sales background, so I've done all of that stuff. I've literally had one podcast conversation, a couple of calls afterwards to talk about how amazing the podcast was. And organically we got to the point of, hey, by the way, I know what you're doing in your business and I think I could help. Should we have a conversation about it? And quite literally within a couple of days, we're working together. So this is the power of how your podcast could help you get more clients if you have a service-based business. Likewise, you might not have a business, and that's totally cool, and you might absolutely love your job. So I'm going to go back to the example of a lawyer. So let's just say that you're in the legal field, you're just starting out, and I believe that when you're starting out in law, you, instead of becoming a solicitor or a barrister, I'm not quite sure the exact right terminologies, but I believe you start off as a legal assistant or a paralegal. They might just be the same thing, but maybe they're not, I don't know. But let's just say that's the level that you start at, which is not your highest level that you can get to, but it's definitely entry level into a law firm. You could start a podcast that interviews barristers and solicitors and judges everyone who is above your level to talk about their journey, how they got to their position, to talk about the qualifications that they've done in addition to what you might be working on, talk to them about their cases, what they're well known for, and essentially create a network of people who are in positions above you that in the future may very likely have the influence and the ability to offer you a position. And again, I hear about people applying for jobs all the time. I've got family, people who are doing it. I've got friends who are doing it. And the people who end up getting the job are almost always the ones that created a really good relationship with the person that they were being interviewed by. And this is your opportunity to do that without even trying to get a job, without even trying to get a promotion. And what you'll realize is people are a lot more helpful and friendly once you get to know them. And if you get to know them through something like a podcast, it's very open, it's very easy, it's very, there's no pressure for them to give you something other than they're just having a chat with you. And because that brings people's barriers down and their walls down, you're now putting yourself in a position where you have the ability to ask for them to look out for anything if it comes up because you might be interested, or they might just keep you in mind for any opportunities that they have at their firms if they're not in your firm already when they're looking for someone to take a step up. So I really hope that's helped, because I can tell you now it's generated me more business than I even thought was possible, but I also know it can generate you a ton of business because there's more than enough for everyone in the world. And in your career, I definitely know that it could help you get a promotion or a pay rise or both. So guys, thank you so much for listening. And I know that I've gone through a lot in this video, so do take the time to go back over different parts of this video if there's something that you're not 100% clear on, or you just need to repeat it again. Remember, repetition is mastery. So do all the actions again and again and again. Like even the edits on my video, I would say that they're not the best in the world, but where they are today compared to where they were when I started, the only reason it's progressed is because I've repeated the same action over and over again. And I'm still using the free version. So, I'm still not paying for that stuff. Same with, getting your guests, sending out DMs, creating a relationship with people, engaging with their content. Keep doing the actions. I know you might feel worried. I know you might feel like, oh, am I the right person to do this? Or this is embarrassing. What if they say no? I get all of that. And I want you to take the action anyway, because nothing great ever came from doing nothing. But everything that you want lies on the other side of these actions that have maybe some negative emotions attached to it, like the fear, the worry, the anxiety, the doubt. And none of that's important. What's important is what you would love to create and what you would love to essentially share with the world in the form of your story, your podcast, and the information that you want to give. So take the action. You don't need anything. I hope this video has proven that to you. You don't need to spend a single penny to get started. So you literally have no excuse. And let me know in the comments, what was your revelation moment from this video? What was the part that you've taken away and gone, do you know what? I was about to swear there. Do you know what? I never thought of that. Or oh my God, I was thinking about that and now you've just solidified it for me. And drop in the comments as well if you have names of your podcast that you're not quite sure about, or if there's questions on anything that I've gone through that you'd like more clarity on. Definitely drop a comment below. As always, like I mentioned right at the beginning, subscribe, please. It really helps the channel. And I just want to say thank you so much. Do let me know what you decide to do your podcast on, because I would love to listen. Peace.